Hello everybody and welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Be Candid with your host, me, Amber. I hope you are all doing well. It's currently a Monday evening. I'm hoping to get this up at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Everybody say a little prayer. Not sure it's going to happen, but hopefully it will be up at some point tomorrow. So this is probably the quickest turnaround on a podcast episode I've done, but I think that's kind of fun because it's almost like I'm talking to you in real time. Not quite, but probably as close as I'll ever get. I did have a little bit of some trouble with setting up the microphone, which was kind of annoying, but hopefully this works. If not, I've just chatted to myself for half an hour, which no change there, to be honest. I could ramble for days, but as I said, it's currently Monday. I just got out the bath. I'm feeling nice and warm. It's times like this where I wish I had a dressing gown. I feel like I'm missing out. I'm currently wearing like an oversized sweatshirt from Top Man. It's actually Christian's, but we all know whatever's in Christian's wardrobe is also going to end up in my wardrobe. So I just love like the clean feeling after getting out of the bath. I like fully exfoliated, so I'm feeling as smooth as a freaking dolphin. I love it, and I just thought it'd be a good time to kind of chat with you. Some interesting things have been going on recently, including one very big update, which I'm not going to tell you about. I'm going to be that annoying person, and I'm going to wait until a little bit later down the line to tell you once it's all set in stone. But today was a very exciting day. That's what I shall say for now. But for today's episode, we're going to be talking all about money mistakes people make in their 20s, some helpful tips that I've learnt along the way, some mistakes I have personally made or that I've seen my friends make, and some things that I have had to learn the hard way and I've really found useful, and I wish people had told me sooner, so hopefully I can be that person for you. But I guess we'll do a little life update since I'm doing these podcast episodes kind of bi-weekly, although let's face it, I just kind of upload whenever I can at this point. I went home to Bournemouth for the weekend with my boyfriend Christian. We saw so many people. We actually went down for 5 days. We had some annual leave and we caught up with all our friends. So I'm going to shout out Del if you're listening in the lab. Hey, thanks for listening. We saw Del. We saw a lot of people over the weekend. We saw practically my whole family, which never happens. We do it like at Christmas and then once in summer. So that was this occasion which we went down for. I also got my hair done in Bournemouth, which, can I just say, Bournemouth hairdressing prices, unmatched. Honestly, so much better than London, although I'm sure many places are. I go to Exclusive, which I think is on like Castle Lane West, and I use Hannah. Hannah does my hair. She's fab. Make sure you ask for her if you're going there. But I just got my kind of balayage topped up just in the roots a little bit, and I got the blonde lightened a tiny bit because it was just getting a little bit brassy. I think my whole hair situation happened back in May, so it was about time for a little top up, and I just got like an inch chopped off, which felt so good. It was kind of getting to that stage where, you know, when like you can kind of feel the ends are dying a little bit and it's just not as fresh as it could be. I'm back at stage 1. I'm feeling fresh, guys. I've had my bath, I've had my hair done. What more could you want? So that was really lovely. The whole weekend was really lovely. Went to the beach, had some good food, saw my mum's puppy, although he's not much of a puppy anymore, which makes me sad. But he's still 8 months, you know, it's still puppy material, but he's just getting so much bigger. But yeah, that was kind of the biggest catch up for me. Otherwise, just working away, crocheting some really cute stuff. I've got a baby cousin on the way, which is so exciting. That was announced like last week. So yeah, I'm going to be having a little baby cousin, which is mad because I'm nearly 24. And I'm currently crocheting her a little cardigan, which already looks so cute, and I'm so excited. And I'm kind of over eager because she's not due until February and her cardigan is practically ready waiting for her, so I need to calm down on that front. But there's just something about babies that are so stinking cute, and I know it's just going to be the most precious little thing in the entire world. So that is also a very exciting life update there. So I think with that, all that said and done, we'll get into some money saving tips, some money mistakes to watch out for. I would say this episode would be great if you are potentially just moving out of home or just starting your first job, or just kind of like new to the world of like managing your own money, or potentially if you're just kind of like been at it for a while and it hasn't been going great, or you just feel a bit lost with your money, this would also be a great episode for you. I have actually got another like finance based episode talking about my relationship with money, which probably would be a good place to start to kind of understand the context that I'm coming from, just because my relationship with money hasn't always been a good one, a healthy one. Some would say it maybe could have been a little bit toxic at times, but I think I've come a long way, and I think I'm slowly, I don't want to jinx it, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think I'm slowly getting to the point where I have found a pretty good balance that works for me, so I wanted to share that with you. Okay, so I think the most obvious or common, shall we say, the most common money mistake to make in your 20s is spending too much money on rent. And I think it's so easy to do, especially in today's climate. Obviously, it does make a difference, like where you live. London pricing is crazy, and I actually just did a YouTube video about like some of the cheapest areas to live in London, if you wanted to check that out over on my YouTube channel. But in terms of London rent, it can really range. So I'll use some examples, like real life situations. Me and my boyfriend have a 1-bedroom, like it's a house, but it's not a house. It's a very tiny house, but 1 bedroom for £1,200 a month. That's not including any bills or council tax or anything like that. I have friends that pay £750 a month each. So currently I'm paying £600 a month. For myself, Christian's also paying £600 a month, obviously, if you want to do the maths. But yeah, I have friends paying £750. I have friends paying £800. Like, I have a friend paying, I think she pays like £1,200, just her. So yeah, it can really vary, but I tend to find that within the circle of people I'm talking to, I tend to have like the lower amount of rent. And I think that's not to like boast or anything, but I think it's just to figure out what your priorities are, which is kind of my main tip when it comes to figuring out how much you can afford to pay on rent. Obviously, everyone's situation is going to be different in terms of like how much they make, like how much their salary is, whether they're a student, whether they have any debt they need to pay off and everything like that. But I think rent is something that you're going to have to pay for a very long time, like potentially a year, 2 years, and you're kind of tied into it with your contract. And it's money that you don't necessarily think about, but that gets taken out every month. So if that's quite a hefty sum and it's maybe like 75% of your wage, you might want to think about that a little longer, because that is a large proportion of your money going towards rent, which honestly at the end of the day you don't have anything to show for it. Do you know what I mean? It's just money you're throwing at your landlord, knowing eventually you're going to have to move out or you'll move on to a new place, but that money's not going anyway. Like, you're not making an investment from that money, it's literally just going straight to the landlord. So in terms of figuring out what your priorities are, for me, I always think about the kind of space I need. Like, I don't need anything super lavish or big. It's just me and my boyfriend, hence why we live in a tiny house right now, because we just don't really need a lot of space. We do prioritize having a garden, which does probably increase our rent, because if we wanted a 1-bedroom apartment, I'm sure we could find it for like a similar price, if not lower. But for us, it's really important to have some outdoor space. I like to sunbathe. Christian likes to practice on his skateboard. We like to have people around for barbecues, and I think we've just been a little bit spoiled with our London gardens, so I refuse to move anywhere that doesn't have a garden, basically. But that's fine, because I've factored that into my rent price. I think as soon as you start thinking that you need an ensuite for every bedroom and you want it super modern and all of these kind of extras added on top of it, maybe you want like a concierge and all of those kind of things, obviously the rent is going to become more expensive. And especially in terms of like the area you're looking, that can hugely affect the price. So for me and Christian, it's important for us to live near a tube station, but for the first 2 houses we lived in, we didn't really live that close to a tube station, honestly, and it did make life a little bit harder. We did end up spending a little bit more on kind of like getting to the tube station in terms of buses and things like that, but at the time it's what worked for us and it worked best for our budget. So just things to prioritize, things to consider. Then obviously once you've got your kind of ideal rent price in your head, look out for deals, whether they've got a lesser deposit than other places. I know some places were doing like the first month rent free because of lockdown and everything like that. but also just see if you can negotiate on anything. So for example, our letting agent was very nice actually. He told us that the house we were looking around that I'm currently sat in had been on the market for a while, and we could probably offer a lower price and the landlord would accept it, just so that we were paying a little bit less every month, and they did, which was amazing. So that was really great. I think the next money mistake is also a tricky one, but it's also one that I feel like I did from pretty early on. As soon as I got a salaried job, like with regular pay, I feel like I implemented this. But the money mistake is not adding a percentage of your salary to your savings. So it doesn't have to be a big percentage. I think that's what intimidates people when you say like, oh, you have to add money from your salary to your savings every month. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have no money left, which I completely understand, especially when I had my first job at Sainsbury's. I was making like £500 a month. I wasn't going to be putting in like £300 into my savings. It was just not realistic. But if I put maybe like 5% or 10%, like it didn't have to be a lot. I think I ended up putting in £50 to £100 a month in, and it just makes such a difference. I think if you can find that kind of balance where you're putting enough money away to kind of like build something semi-quickly, because it's nice to see the numbers growing and you feel like a sense of accomplishment the more you add in there and the more you see your number and your savings go up. But the balance between that and also like having enough to live on, you don't want to be putting like £200 a month into your savings and then thinking like, oh, like it's the last week of the month and I can't do anything because I'm so struck for cash. Like that's not fun, and that took me ages to figure out. So at the moment I'm currently getting paid around like £1,800 a month or something like that, and I put £300 into a savings account with my boyfriend. Again, I guess some people might consider that a lot, some people might consider that nothing, but it just works out for me and kind of my expenses as well as some spending money, and it just makes life so much easier by having it as a percentage, because it means whenever you get a pay rise or your money gets reevaluated or you get a bonus, you can really easily like convert the number, or you can increase that percentage of savings with the percentage of your pay rise. So just something to consider. And if you're not like me and you don't like looking at the numbers and you don't really like checking out your bank account that often, you can obviously set it up as a direct debit, which just makes it so much easier. If you don't think you're going to have like the willpower to manually put in like £150 each month into your savings account, and you just want it gone, you just want it to go away by itself and make a little nest egg for you, set up a direct debit. I think direct debits are honestly the best thing ever, because I never have to think about a bill anymore. They just get taken out of my account and I can look at it when I make a conscious effort, but until then I don't have to worry about it. So if that's more suited to you and your kind of spending style, definitely set up a direct debit. And it doesn't have to be set in stone. Like you can review it on a monthly basis. You can just add money as and when you want. I have recently started doing this thing where every time I think about money in terms of like, oh, I really want to go on holiday soon, or oh, I need to get my mum a birthday present, or whenever something like pings in my brain, I literally just put like some spare coins into my savings account. So you'll see on my bank statement, if you ever looked at it, that it'd be like 60p added to savings account, £1.24 added to savings account, 99p added to savings account, because I just put in a random number. But again, it makes it more satisfying to see that number like kind of creep up slowly, but the number's always getting bigger, which is nice. I was going to say something else. What was I going to say? Oh, one thing, because I haven't got it written down on my notes. You can put roundups on your banking app, which I'm sure everyone's done at this point, but so many people told me about this in terms of like when you spend 60p at a shop, it rounds it up to £1, and then the additional 40p gets put into your savings account. And it does it for you. You don't have to think about it. Again, super lazy way of saving money, which we all love. But I was always like, oh, I'm really good at saving money, so I don't think I need to do that. Which is ridiculous, because who doesn't need to save 40p's every now and then? But it adds up so quickly, and it's so nice because you don't even notice it. Like, it's not written on your bank account or your bank statement. So looking back at my bank statement, I'm like, oh, I spent all that money. But actually, some of it's being hidden away. So that's a really easy way to save some extra money. I think my biggest money mistake, maybe not in my 20s, but more so in like my teen years, was impulse buying. I went shopping far too often. I was definitely the person who was picking up like 5 to 6 items on the way to the checkout, or when you're in the queue and they've got all the goodies lined up by the tills. I was that person spending like 20 extra pounds than I needed to because I was just in it for the impulse buying. So I think the easiest way to avoid this, or like the biggest tip, is to avoid temptation. Obviously that means not going into shops, which is kind of easier now because I feel like so many people are shopping online more, and like since lockdown and everything, people have just kind of gotten used to shopping online rather than going in person. And I think that does reduce the amount of impulse buying, just because you're browsing online for like exactly what you want usually. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you do impulse buy on online stores, but I think that's easier. But otherwise I just don't tend to go into a shop. Like for example, I only buy secondhand clothing at the moment. It's just something I'm doing and have done since the start of 2020. So I will not go in H&M. Do not take me into a Zara. I do not want to go. I do not want to see what is on offer, because I know I'll be tempted, and I don't necessarily think, maybe I'd feel like I was missing out, or maybe I'd feel the urge to buy it, but I just don't need the temptation. Like, it doesn't make me feel good to have that temptation and feel like I'm maybe limiting myself. So I just don't go, I just don't put myself in those positions, which I think is a huge tip to try and like avoid impulse buying. Obviously, making a list is also really great. I think this is more relevant to like grocery shopping, because my next tip, honestly, is don't shop whilst you're hungry, because that is the time when I am throwing everything in my basket. But I also find by making a list, I'm not picking up random ingredients that I don't actually have a need for, because I have had that moment when you get home from the grocery store and you're like, hang on, what did I even buy? Like, I have no food, because you've just picked up the most random things down the aisles. So I think making a list can also help avoid impulse buying, because you're not like buying for the sake of it or because it looks good in the moment. I think another great tip, probably more to do with going into clothing shops and like trying not to buy too many clothes and things like that, is tell your friends, like let your friends know that you're trying not to impulse buy. Because I find, like, I love going shopping with my friends. I think it's so much fun. I love going shopping with my mum. It's just like a great thing to do, to spend time together and just have a bit of fun. But my friends are big cheerleaders, which I love. But also it means like my friends and my mum will be like, oh no, just buy it. Like, maybe you wear it to this. Or like, oh my gosh, this would look so cute on you. And they're like showing me something that I haven't even picked up. And as fun and lovely as that is, if I'm trying not to impulse purchase, their kind of, what do you want to call it? Like their persistence or their, I don't know, excitedness for these items could just push me over the edge to be like, oh, go on then, I'll buy it. And then before you know, I've spent like 50 quid. Or another one, which my mum should definitely do. Sarah, if you're listening, this is a tip for you. Unsubscribe from newsletters and offers from like Urban Outfitters and New Look and H&M and all of those. When you get those emails through saying like 25% off everything, you best believe I'll be impulse buying. I'll have ASOS notifications ping that's like 30% off underwear or whatever, and for some reason, do I need any new underwear? No. Have I just bought a whole basket full? Yes. Did I need to? No. Will I regret it? Probably. Why do we do that to ourselves? It's so easy to unsubscribe from those newsletters. I try and do it maybe like once every 2 weeks or once a month. I'll just kind of look at my top 10 emails and just unsubscribe from them, because they ping up every day and I really don't need to be seeing them. So that's another great tip for trying to avoid impulse purchases. Ooh, okay, this next one is tricky and one I've struggled with a lot. And it means, oh, my laptop just died. What's going on? Oh no. Okay, we're back in action. The one I have struggled with a lot is buying trendy items. Now, I used to buy a lot of trendy items as a teenager. I was all about trying to be trendy and cool and like buying what all the other kids were buying, probably spending more money than I needed to. And then I went the opposite, in the sense that I was like convinced I was going to have a capsule wardrobe, which, if you know me, is the most ridiculous thing ever because I have so many clothes. But I just went this complete opposite way, where I wanted everything in my wardrobe to be meaningful and timeless and classic, and I could wear it in 12 years' time. And to a certain extent, I still think that. And there will be certain trends I buy into and certain trends I don't. It's so hard, because I think trends are relatively short term, right? That's what a trend is. It's a moment in time where something is really popular. So you just have to try and figure out what trends work for you and what trends are for you just a fad. So for example, I know that scarf tops I'll probably be wearing for the next 5 years. I love that trend. I think it looks so good. I love how versatile it is, how easy it is, how cheap it is. And so that is a trend that I'm more than happy to buy into. But like phone charms, the like bracelets that you hang off your phone, I haven't bought one of those because I know it's going to annoy the heck out of me. I'm probably going to break it. It's probably going to end up smashing my phone. I'm probably going to get bored of it. It's probably going to get dirty, or I'll dip it in my tea or something. So that's not a trend that I've bought into. And I've distinguished those two trends separately and worked out what works for me and what doesn't. So I don't need to buy into every trend. But one way to buy trends a bit more eco-savvy, I guess, would be to thrift them, which is what I do with my scarf tops. Just makes it so much easier. I see people buying scarf tops online for like £10. You can buy a silk scarf in a charity shop for literally £1, which I have done. It's evidence. I've done it. So it's possible. So thrifting your trendy items makes it so much cheaper, and I feel like it then becomes less of a trend because you've kind of done it sustainably. So I don't think it has the same kind of like wasteful connotation as trends sometimes do. I feel like trends can be quite superficial and fast, and then it's like over before you know it, whereas if you've thrifted it, it's kind of a bit more sustainable, a bit slower in terms of production and everything, which just makes me feel a little less guilty about buying into a trend. But maybe that's just me. I also think borrowing things from your friends or your mum, if she's trendy, which I'm very lucky that my mum is also a great way to go around like buying into a trend without actually spending any money, because you're just using your resources. Your friends, your family, their resources, use them for whatever you can. And I think trends is one of those things. So I've like borrowed tops from my mum, I've borrowed many a dress from my friend. Like, it's completely fine, and it just means that all of our clothes get a bit more love and wear out of them. Oh, my next tip for that little spiel I just did was buy into versatile trends, aka a scarf top, which I've already talked about. But the thing I love about that kind of trend, I guess you could say it with like the phone charm as well, but the scarf top can be used for so many things. Like, I can tie it onto a bag, I can use it as an actual scarf, I can use it as a headscarf, I can use it as a body scarf, I can use it as a blimmin' table doily if I wanted to. I could stitch it onto a pillowcase, whatever it may be. Like, it's just more versatile than like one thing, which I appreciate. Okay, the next money mistake, I kind of hate myself for saying it, but I think depending on the person, this could be viewed as a money mistake, which is going out all of the time. Now, the reason I kind of hate myself for saying this is because it's so first year university Amber, which is probably in the opposite way you're thinking. Like, I never went out in first year of university because I was just safeguarding my money. I was like a little squirrel with her nuts. I was not letting go of a single penny, and that meant not going out at all. And that is not what I'm trying to encourage you to do. But if you're one of those people that is out from Thursday through to Sunday, maybe even Tuesday through to Sunday, who knows, and you're spending £100 at a time, you're only buying cocktails, you're getting an Uber there and back, you're buying outfits for these night outs, like, if that is you, probably unnecessary, just a little bit. I don't want to stop you having fun, I don't want to be a party pooper, but I'm just saying maybe there's a bit more of a more why do I always try and say this word and I can't say it? Economical. Maybe there's a better way to do it. A cheaper way to do it is basically what I'm trying to say. So, for example, there are cheaper alternatives to going out. If you feel like you're being pressured by your friends to going out, you could always go out for like a lunch, because I feel like lunch is sometimes cheaper, or even a breakfast is definitely cheaper. Obviously you can like go charity shopping together, because what more would you want in life? But if you are set on like going out to dinner or going out for drinks, there are definitely ways you can make that cheaper. For example, you can set yourself a limit, which I think used to be so much easier, because I would just go out with a £20 note and just see how far it got me, whereas now with like credit cards and everything, it's very easy to spend a lot, especially if you've had like 1 or 2 drinks and then all of a sudden you're buying around for everyone because Tipsy Amber thinks that's a great idea. You're probably going to end up spending a lot of money. So by trying to set like a mental limit, being like, I'm only going to spend £50, whatever it is, that might be a way to go about it. Maybe you want to transfer all of your money into another account and just leave £50 on your card, so that maybe that's a bit more of a barrier for you to go off spending more money. The other thing I used to do as a broke university student, and this is not revolutionary whatsoever, but I would just buy the cheapest thing on the menu. You don't have to get glitzy and glam with your order choices. You can get a £4 glass of wine. You can get a like £5 shot of vodka and lemonade. Whatever it may be, you can choose cheap items on the menu. Just get a side of fries or whatever the cheapest like burger is on there, whatever it may be. I definitely did this for a very long time to help save some money, because it may sound silly. You may think like, well, there's only like a £5 difference between a glass of wine and a cocktail. But then that £5 after like 4 rounds, that's 20 quid. You know, like that's just gone so quickly. Like you've literally drunk 20 quid. It's madness. So that's something to consider. And I think I've kind of hinted at it before, but just don't give in to the pressure. I think especially when you're making new friends or you're going out with work friends for the first time, whatever it may be, it can be very tempting to be like, oh, well, they're ordering, I don't know, lobster linguine or something fancy, so now you have to order something fancy. Or everyone's drinking really expensive champagne, so I have to drink that. Like, that's so not the case. And I did used to be that annoying person that at the end of the night, when people would be like, oh, should we just split the bill? I'd be like, well, if it's okay, I'd like to just pay for my own. And that was just because I hadn't bought any alcohol and I'd only bought a like main course, whereas people had like 3 courses and a bottle of wine or whatever. And I guess in a way that like that takes courage to be able to say that and like stand up for yourself. It's also just me being like hella frugal and be like, no, I'm not paying for your meal, because that was the kind of mindset I was in, which you would have known if you had listened to my last episode. I'm happy to say I'm now at the point where I'm like comfortable enough to split the bill with people, but you do you. You're on your own journey with your money. So if you're trying to save money and you're choosing all the cheapest items on the menu, I don't think you're being rude by asking to pay for those items. Okay. Next one, signing up for contracts you can't afford. Why do people do this? I think it's the same as rent. I think these kind of go in the same box, but in terms of like your phone bill, or maybe you've got a new car on, what do they call it? On Christian?
Yeah.
What do you call it when you have a new car and you pay for it every month?
Finance.
On finance, thank you. Yeah, that's what it was. Or a car on finance, whatever it is, because you're tying yourself into that financial commitment for like a year, 18 months, 3 years, whatever it may be. And if you know from the start that you might not be able to afford that, or if you lose your job, there's no way you're going to be able to afford that, it's probably not ideal to be committing to it from the beginning. Again, I would say look for deals if you can, see if there's any offers on, see if you can piggyback off your friends and family for those deals. So I'm not sure how, potentially like a family phone plan or anything like that, if it would just make your part of your contract a little bit cheaper potentially. Oh, and then obviously buy secondhand. It's going to be a theme throughout this episode because everything is cheaper secondhand. So whether you want to get a secondhand phone, which I currently have, I bought a secondhand phone, or a secondhand car, also did that one. Whatever it is, buying it secondhand just makes things a little bit cheaper, and it's usually like a one-off payment if you're buying secondhand, so you're not like tied down to any financial commitment, which kind of terrifies me. Okay, we can't do this episode without talking about student overdrafts. I am lucky in the sense that because I was so twisted with my mind and money in my first year of uni, I didn't dive into my student overdrafts. I think I would spend like £30 on my student overdraft if it was like I needed to buy food or something and I didn't have enough left in my current account. I would go into my student overdraft, but I knew full well that I could pay that back once I'd got paid that month or what have you. If you don't know what a student overdraft is, by the way, an overdraft is when your bank agrees to give you a certain amount of money, kind of like additional on your card that you can dip into. It's not your money, you have to pay it back. Usually it will have interest rates on it, and if you don't have an agreed upon overdraft and you spend more money than you have in your account, you'll go into an unagreed overdraft, which is hella expensive. I think they charge you like £15 a day or something ridiculous. But the thing about a student overdraft, and I don't know why they do this, is they give students overdrafts with 0% interest, which means people will go off with their credit cards, or debit cards shall I say, and spend the £100 that they have on it, and then they'll spend the extra £1,500 in their overdraft because it doesn't have any interest on it. So they're like, don't worry, I'll put that back in over the course of like the next 3 months. But then they don't, and then they get out a new card, and then they use up all of that student overdraft, and before you know it, it's a very slippery slope into student debt, and you will have to pay that off eventually. God knows how, and eventually, as soon as you like stop becoming a student, it gets interest put on it, so you have to pay that back even quicker because you'll owe even more money. And I do think that's just like a flaw in our system to give that much money like interest free to students who notoriously are bad with money and spending money and end up broke. Like, I don't know why that's a thing, but if you can stay away from that, like I obviously know it's needed by some people, it's the only way they can pay their rent or get through the month because their student loan doesn't cover enough, which I completely get. Like, I was with you on that one. But I think it's just can be very dangerous if you're not super aware of how you're spending your money or how you're going to be putting your money back in there. Another thing I think could be kind of suspect is it Karma or Klarna? It's like a thing they have on shopping websites where you can pay in installments. So they'll pay the upfront cost and you pay them back over the course of like 3 months. So if you're doing like a huge shop on Pretty Little Thing or whatever, comes to like £300, you would just pay £100 a month for the next 3 months to Klarna rather than directly to the website for that like lump sum of money. I think this is kind of the same as an overdraft in the sense that you're setting yourself up for a financial commitment, and unless you know you're going to get that much money every month and you're not going to miss it and you're not spending that money on anything else, or you won't need that money that month for anything else, fine, go for it. But I think that can be quite difficult because you don't know if your car's going to break down or something's going to go wrong, or you have to hire a plumber, or for whatever reason you need that money then and there. It's gone. You've already spent it in the months that you didn't even have the money in your bank account, which I think can be kind of scary. Like, the whole idea of spending money you don't have intimidates me, but that's from me coming to you without a credit card, which I need to figure out because my credit score is going to be shot. But Klarna kind of scares me right now, to be honest, so that's a money mistake I would try and avoid. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about is investing. Now, I want to start this section off by saying I am not a financial advisor. I am in no way trained in economics or maths or finance or any of that spiel. I'm just talking about what I've done or what I've seen online, what's working for me, what I've heard some of my friends talk about, and take from it what you will. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I'm not telling you how to invest your money, whether you should invest your money, just sharing my experiences one step at a time. So obviously a money mistake in your 20s for certain people would be not investing. Honestly, I wish I had figured it out sooner. I was kind of aware of investing from an early age. I want to say from like 15, 16, I was kind of aware that you could invest in stocks and get money back. I think honestly Friends might have been my first like peek into like, oh, there's a stock market, that's interesting. But the idea of risking your money, which obviously that's what investment is, every investment has a certain level of risk to it, scared the heebie-bejeebies out of me. I was not about to lose any money, as we know. I was a squirrel sat there with my nuts. I was towering up my pennies one by one. I was not going to let a single one of those bad boys go. So investing to me was just super intimidating. And I think at the age of 18, I was speaking with my stepdad, who's like quite good, or he has done investing for a while and he kind of gets it. He has like a finance brain about him, and he was trying to explain it to me. And it just all sounded all very complicated. Like I had to look at these businesses and their past, like, what do you call them? Balance sheets and things like that. Like, I don't even know what they're called. But it was just a lot. And I was like, wow, okay, I'm not really sure what to do with that. So I'm just going to kind of like take a step back for now, which I did. And I think, yeah, just like the risk of it all and the amount of energy that I needed to put in when I didn't really know that much about it, like it all just looked like jargon to me, was very scary. So I took a step back, watched some YouTube videos about different ways to invest, like passively and things like that, and I found out about this thing called a life strategy fund, which is basically a type of investment where you put money in either like one lump sum or every month, or you can just add it as and when you like, and you try and leave it in there for as long as you can, and then that interest builds and grows. So I think it's called compound interest. Sorry if any smart people are listening and that's really wrong, but I just thought that sounded like a way better idea for the kind of thing I wanted to do, because it was lower risk, because obviously you're leaving your money in there for a longer amount of time, so there's less likely that like the market's going to crash and you would lose everything. Like hopefully it would be a slower decline than that. And it was passive, so I didn't need to check it every month. I didn't need to update and buy more and sell and all of these kind of terms that I had no idea what I was doing about. I could just put the money into the account, leave it there, and hope something grew, like just magically blossomed over the next like 3 to 30 years. So that's what I've been doing for the last like 5 to 6 months. I've opened up a life strategy fund. It's currently got a rate of return of 11%, which is so good. My bank account has a rate of return of 0.9%. So I'm making like 11 times more money by having it in this life strategy fund rather than my bank account. I add £150 every month, just out of like direct debit from my bank account. I will say it comes out of my bank account at the end of the month, which is really annoying, because I always think like, oh wow, I'm doing pretty well this month, and then £150 come out and I'm like, oh, never mind. But I'm really enjoying that, seeing that number go up. Obviously it's very slowly because I've only had it in there for 5 months, and honestly I do check it every month because I just like to see how it's doing and whether I'm still in the green, which is nice to kind of keep an eye on. Obviously with investing there's always risk involved, so figure out your situation and how much you can afford to lose. I think that's the biggest thing. So for me right now, obviously having that money in that investment life strategy fund, I don't see that money very often. It's not in my bank account, it's not attached to my banking app in any way. I don't have the app on my phone, which just means like if it all disappeared, if that money in that account just like vanished, I don't think obviously it would suck, like it's money, but I don't think I'd feel like strapped for cash or like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? Because I'm still putting money into my savings account, I've still got money in my bank account, and I've worked out proportionally that I can afford to put that money into that account each month, but I can also afford to lose that money if whatever hell froze over and something really nasty happened. I could afford to lose that money. Obviously I'm not wishing that to happen. I hope for all sakes that doesn't happen, but it just means that I'm not putting myself in any kind of detrimental situation where if I invested all my money and it like went, if I lost it all, I would have to move out of my house, or I'd have to move back in with my parents, or I wouldn't be able to afford my university fees or whatever it may be. I'm not putting myself in that situation. So you really do need to figure out like, sure, how much can you invest? That's really exciting, but at the same time, are you going to be able to survive basically if you lose that money as well? The other thing I obviously just wanted to mention as well is it's very rewarding putting money into investing if you are happy and feel comfortable doing it, because you are getting free money. Basically, they're using your money and rewarding you for it by giving you more money for putting your money into something. Like for me, it's so easy because I'm not managing it, it's just passive. So I'm just literally getting paid for like my day-to-day life at the moment. Obviously it's not a lot, it's like 11% of whatever amount of money, it's like nothing huge, but in 20 to 30 years time that might be something pretty cool, which hopefully will be. Everyone keeps your fingers crossed for me. But investing is a great way to kind of like maximize your money, make your money work smarter and not harder, as long as you've kind of done the research and you're happy and feel comfortable putting your money into those investments. Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. It's currently 20 past 10. I've spoken for far too long. I did not realise this episode would be this long, but I don't know why I kind of like talking about money. Don't know what it is, but I've had a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last like 40 minutes or so. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it didn't come across as like too preachy or lectury, but these are definitely some things I had wished like an older sister would have told me, or like someone at uni had just like been like, oh, heads up, this might be a better way to use your money, or things to think about with your money, because money makes the world go round, as they say. It's obviously not the key to happiness or anything like that, but I do think it allows your life to be more comfortable and gives you access to more opportunities and things and experiences. So it's always good to have and to work on and just have a healthy relationship and healthy habits with your money. So I hope this has helped some of you. I hope you found it interesting. Let me know what you thought about this episode over on our Instagram page at To Be Candid Podcast. And as always, you can leave me a review on the Apple Podcasts app, because I love to see what you guys think about the podcast in general, as well as any feedbacks or recommendations or suggestions you guys have. Definitely get involved with some future episodes, because we have some really fun ones coming up. And hopefully I'll speak to you very soon. Bye.